Hi, my name is Bailey Jones, and this is my parable recreation for Bible 202. Our story begins in a neighborhood called Kingdom Heights. Kingdom Heights was managed by Mr. O. Mr. O was the manager who took care of all of the landscaping, the dreaded HOAs, and welcomed every single family that came to the town, especially in his neighborhood. Mr. O got to know Mr. and Mrs. Alpha very well. See, they moved in House 101 about 30 years ago. They signed a 30-year mortgage and have been making payments on their home over the years. They had even retired in that house. They had worked so hard to make almost the final payment on their home. Mr. O and Mr. and Mrs. Alpha had a great relationship because they had gotten to know each other so well over the years. During this time, many of the homes went for sale and were bought by other owners. Mr. O met Mr. Beta, who lived in 103 about 15 years ago. He had just recently completed his master's program and was accepted a job at the local university. Mr. Beta spent extra hours in the tutoring lab, spending time with his students and doing extra activities on the side in order to help pay for his home. He was so excited to be a homeowner, and Mr. O shared that enthusiasm with him. They got to know each other more and more over the past 15 years. Miss Delta moved into House 105 just 3 months ago. She was so excited to find this cute little town and adored the red roof homes in Kingdom Heights. Her and Mr. O had briefly gotten to know each other just by name and by a plate of cookies that Mr. O had brought her. She had dreaded the 30-year mortgage but knew that it was the best choice for her. Mr. O spent time in the neighborhood getting to know everyone. He got to know Mr. and Mrs. Alpha, Mr. Beta, and Miss Delta. He was so excited and knew it would change all of their lives when he found out that Kingdom Heights was given a grant. So he called a meeting. Mr. and Mrs. Alpha attended. Mr. Beta was there. And Miss Alpha was there, Delta was there as well. They spent all night, the night before, worrying about what this meeting was about. But Mr. O couldn't wait to share the great news. He told everyone that there was a grant, and the grant had been able to pay off the remaining balance on all of their homes. They were debt-free, and he handed each of them the deed to their house. They were so excited, and so was Mr. O. He went through and shook every person's hand. He was so excited that they were able to be debt-free and have the deed of their home, and that he was able to help them. He walked away for a few minutes. During that time, Mr. and Miss Alpha, Mr. Beta, and Miss Delta began to talk among themselves. Mr. and Mrs. Alpha became a little irritated. They thought, how is it that you have not even paid on your home for a year, yet your home is paid off as well, and you received the deed to your home? Have we not done more work than you? Mr. and Mrs. Alpha were saying to Miss Delta. At that point, Mr. O overheard the conversation and stepped back into the room. He said to them, "Does this community not belong to me? Do I not get to decide how I would like to distribute my grants?" It is important to understand that it does not matter how long you have worked, for it is known that the last will be first and the first will be last. This parable comes from Matthew 20, 1 through 16. It is the parable of the workers in the vineyard. During this parable, Jesus is explaining that workers would come throughout the day and work on a site. And during that time, they were each recruited at different times during the day. However, at the end of the day, they would all receive 1 dinar, because that's what was agreed upon by the first workers. The workers who had worked all day became frustrated. And Jesus said, "Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me, or do you forgive my generosity?" Back when Jesus was around and he was giving this story, the church did not exist as the form of a building, and the people during that time didn't really understand what making disciples was. The importance of this story was showing that the kingdom of God was not at all what the people perceived it to be. They perceived it to be a place, but instead it was actually a gift of eternity given to them once they had accepted Jesus as their Lord and Savior. Today, what we need to focus on is that it doesn't matter if you are a murderer and accept Jesus while you're on death row, if you are sick and accept Jesus on your deathbed, or if you're a 12-year-old who's accepted Jesus right at the beginning of your life. 20 years old, 15 years old, it does not matter the age that you are when you accept Jesus. We are all given the exact same gift. And that is what's important. To me, I'm very black and white. And so it was really important for me to understand this story because I was given the chance to see that this is all God's choosing. And he has chosen when he would like us to receive the gift of eternity. And that we don't have to fight for this gift and continue. We just need to work as hard as we can for the amount of time that we know and accept Jesus to make more disciples for him.